Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to check out Far Cry 6. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Before we get started, I just want to say that I'm going to try to make this as spoiler free as I can, but I'm just going to give a spoiler warning right here just in case I might let something slip. I mean, I know the game's been out for a few months now, but I always try to be kind to those that are still waiting to purchase the game. So I'm going to try to make this as spoiler free as possible. But if not, this is your spoiler warning. Also, if you guys are new to the channel, please leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Starting off with the story, you start off as an ex-military named Danny, and you can play either as a female version or the male version. I played as the male version, and you're trying to escape this island called Yara, and from a dictatorship that's being overtaken by this dictator named Anton Castillo. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's played by Giancarlo Esposito. And if I'm being 100% honest, I only bought this game because I saw Giancarlo Esposito that was going to be in the game. Like, I'm not even kidding, 100%. I've never been drawn to the Far Cry Never been drawn to the Far Cry games. They just, I don't know. I've never just been pulled to them, but I love Giancarlo's work. I love him in Mandalorian. I know he's in Breaking Bad. He's in The Boys. Like, all the stuff that I'm currently watching, and he just does a fantastic job, and I knew he was going to kill it here. And he does. Literally and figuratively, he does a fantastic job. But yeah, you play as Danny, you're trying to escape the island, you get on this boat, and as fate would have it, what's his name? Anton's son is on the boat. He basically takes his son, shoots up the boat, and you're the sole survivor. You crash land on a small island outside of the big island of Yara, and you run into this guerrilla rebel group that's, you know, trying to get people together to take on Anton, the dictator, and you basically join their cause. You're like, hey, I want to get out of here. And they're like, hey, if you help us just do this little thing, we'll help you get to, I think he's trying to get to Miami, Florida. But you join up with this rebel faction called Libertad. And I'm saying that wrong because everything is in like with a Spanish accent. So it's like Libertad. And I'm probably still saying that super wrong. So basically the main objectives that you're doing for the big chunk of the game is that you're trying to get 3 of these other groups or factions to join Libertad, to join your cause, to take down Anton Castillo, to get back the island of Yara. And those are the Legends of 67, the Monteros, and what was the other one? Montanzas, something like that. Anyway, out of those 3, the Monteros was a fantastic storyline. I actually really loved it. I pretty much from start to end. I mean, each mission kind of had its ups and downs for sure, but the Monteros storyline was really good and actually the best of the 3. And then the Legends of 69, I would have to say, would be my second favorite. It's like the Legends of 67 / La Moral or something like that. So basically, you got this, you know, the Legends, which are the old rebel group that tried to stop I don't know if it was a different dictator, same dictator, but they basically tried to rebel up against that dictator. And then you got the young group, and it's basically both of those put together, and they end up joining your cause at the end. And then the last one, of the 3, the Maximus, or however you say it, was probably my least favorite storyline. And that's ultimately where the story for me really started to drag, and I just wasn't feeling it. Like, don't get me wrong, there were definitely parts I really enjoyed within that storyline. I would say probably the beginning part of it and the end part of it were both really good, had a good start and had a good finish. But just the stuff in the middle just wasn't very good. At least I just didn't pull me in. For example, there's a scene where you go to this lady's house who's basically in charge of Castillo's social media management, something. I can't exactly remember. Advertising, there it is. And you basically hijack into her cameras and you help the Maximus girl do some sort of like rap DJ thing live and interrupt her feed. And it just, I mean, I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it. I was like, oh, we literally went through all this work just so that you can do some rap song. I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it at all. Like I said, the beginning part of that and the end part of that were really good. But overall, guys, the 3 stories I thought were, for the most part, pretty good. Like I said, the Montero's definitely the best of the 3. I really gravitated to that one. I don't want to go too much into each specific storylines as I don't want to get too much into spoilers. There's like so many characters that are just a lot of likable characters. Like for instance, Danny, I really gravitated to the male version of Danny. I thought he was well played, well voiced. Even like the cutscenes I thought were really great. He plays like this just rebel, the perfect guerrilla, as Juan would say it in the game. I just really liked his character. Juan also super funny. Like a lot of the characters in the game are really awesome. Especially, I already mentioned this, is Giancarlo Esposito. He did a fantastic job. The only downside to his character is that he just wasn't in the game as much as advertising led on. Like I said, I've never played any of the Far Cry games before. Any of them, actually. None of them. And I only gravitated to this one because I saw the marketing for it. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And don't get me wrong. Every single scene that he's in, he does a fantastic job. He just wasn't in that many scenes. And it's only cutscenes. It's not like you actually get to have a boss battle with him or anything. Just cutscenes. And a lot of bit disappointed. A lot of the missions also, like I said, kind of in the middle when I'm doing the Maximus missions, it just seemed like, and this is for every single mission, the whole game actually suffered through this from beginning to end. You do certain missions, and once you've done them kind of thing, and you notice that a lot of the different missions, they say it's a different objective, you're getting something different, but it's basically go to this base, shoot as many enemies as you can, take over the base, leave. And every mission is pretty much the same. There's a few, where you have to be in a helicopter or an airplane, but for the most part it was just very samey, and it just got old really fast. And unfortunately, Far Cry 6 suffers from that from the very beginning. Just after like the first, maybe an hour, 2 hours, I started to notice that like, hey, like this is kind of the same. And then, you play a couple more hours, and then you're like, okay, this is the same. Here we go again. You already know what to do, and that just got pretty old pretty fast, I'd say. Which kind of transitions into the next thing I want to talk about, which is gameplay. Speaking of combat, there is a ton of weapons in Far Cry 6. I would say probably more than that you're ever gonna use. There's a lot of fun weapons. Like my favorite weapon that I used for pretty much 99% of the game is like this light machine gun, and it does dirt damage. Like the little damage meter is so small. It has like high velocity. It has a super high maxed out velocity, and it has like a super high like handling and a super high something else. I don't remember exactly the stats, but I just remember that the output damage was super low. So I don't know if many people used it, but the caveat is that it had fire damage. Like the bullets did fire damage, and fire in this game is so freaking OP. Like I don't know if anyone experimented with it or not, but I just found that the fire, like, enemies just died so fast. I died fast. Whenever I ran into a dude that had a flamethrower, I feel like I always, like, had my health just drained super fast. Didn't matter if I was at full or not. And so, like, when I had this light machine gun, I'd be lighting people up, and I could see it barely doing damage. I would unload, like, my whole clip, and they wouldn't even be close to dead. But because the bullets had fire damage, like you could see the second they caught fire, like they would just die. And so I kept that one for pretty much the whole time. There was even like a fire pistol that I got pretty early. I didn't use that one as much just because it only had like 10 rounds or something like that, and it did a lot of damage, but not nearly as much as I believe it was a light machine gun is what it was called. And unfortunately, with this game, I just feel like that there's so much weapon variety that you kind of just you find your favorites, and they pretty much just stick with you throughout the whole game. I kind of switched out here and there. I would have to say, like I was saying earlier, 99% of the time I think I just sticked with the same 4 guns, the same pistol, the same. I got this. I had enough coins or whatever to get basically the. I want to think it's from Assassin's Creed. I mean, it's not from Assassin's Creed, but it's a huge machine gun that's got Assassin's Creed themes and emblems on it. And I got that for free, and that did a frick ton of damage too. You'd be able to take down frickin' planes with it, and just with regular bullets too. So there's, like I said, there's lots of weapon variety, but unfortunately, you kind of, at least for me, I ended up just sticking with the old reliable, you know. Speaking of other weapons, another cool thing that they added were the Supremos. Basically, it's like a backpack that does various different abilities. The first one that you unlock is it's just got a bunch of like tubes on it, and it launches like dynamite, rockets, grenades, all sorts of manner of explosives, and it shoots it at whatever that you're aiming at. I did notice that if you have a large group of enemies, it kind of like all of them kind of like spread shot. But if you're having trouble with a tank, or if you're having trouble with a helicopter, that's a one-shot kill. And I use that so many times, and I would always save it because they have like almost. I don't want to say GTA, but basically when you're causing enough killing a bunch of enemies in a certain area, basically they get alerted, and you get this window that pops up that says you can either flee or you can stay and fight, basically saying that a bunch of reinforcements are about to come in. That usually means helicopters, tanks, and whenever they would show up, I would just one-shot them with the Supremos every single time. There's a bunch of other ones too, like there's this one that shoots a poisonous gas. There's one that's almost like a jetpack fire thing where it launches you up and it shoots fire all around you. Unfortunately, this kind of suffers from the same thing that the weapons do. There's all these different abilities, but just none of them are as good as the first one that you get, which is, like I said, the rocket launcher basically. And it's just really hard to justify switching it out. Like, I switched it out a few times just so that I can experiment with it. And every time I bought a new upgrade, like there's one that juices the juicer or something like that, and it basically just gives you extra stamina. You can run super fast. You could jump really high, jump really far. I experimented with it a little bit, but just none of them just seemed good enough to justify switching out the rockets, which just did a ton of damage. The rocket version just kind of outshined everything, and it's just not really worth it to switch it out. The melee in this game, moving on, the melee is so freaking terrible. I really hate it in this game. So first off, melee only really works if you sneak up on somebody and you hit them from behind, because then it's a one shot kill. You kill them or assassinate them or whatever it is they had called it. But if you're like, sometimes the enemies will run up in your face. Like the AI in this game is it's weird. It's like sometimes I feel like they're strategic and they're leading their shots, and then sometimes I feel like they're freaking dumber than a box of rocks. Like I've had enemies literally run all the way up into my face, and I'm just sitting there shooting at them as they run right towards me. But I see them coming, and they're right within melee range. I click the melee button, and I'm literally in the melee animation, and no matter what, it would stop, and they would always do the kick thing that they do when you get too close. And it's just so broken. I don't know. I didn't use melee that often, but every time I did, I'd always get booted to the ground, or they would melee you back, and you'd fall to the ground. And it just never seemed like it really mattered. It was just annoying. I think melee in this is super trash. Moving on to the next one is the Amigos. The Amigos were so fun. You start out with a crocodile or an alligator named Guapo, and then you can get, I forget what the chicken's name is, or rooster. Chorizo, a little wiener dog named Chorizo. The best part of the whole game, freaking Chorizo and Giancarlo Esposito. Best parts of the whole game. Review's over. The Amigos I think they were just more kind of fun than anything else. I tried to use their abilities, but it seemed like that they never really did it. And they probably did. Like, I know Chorizo, I had him for pretty much the whole game. Every time I got a new one, like when I got the chicken, I immediately switched him back out with Chorizo. and when I got the Boom Boom Dog or whatever his name is, I switched him out. I didn't get the last one, so maybe I'll hop back in and just see what that is and whatnot. But yeah, all of them were not as good as Chorizo. Chorizo basically goes up and he could distract enemies from you with his cuteness, and so while they're not paying attention, I would literally run up and do the machete kill, which would be like the one-hit kill. That was a lot of fun. Or Chorizo would just, like, if you're in the heat of battle, you would hear Chorizo like a little wheel squeaking up, and he'd jump up and he'd bite a dude's arm, and you'd go up and you'd shoot him or stealth kill him, whatever. Chorizo was the best amigo there was. I'd also like to point out that there is co-op in the game, though I didn't do anything really with co-op. You can play with a friend. I went through the whole game solo, so I didn't really do too much with that, so I can't really speak on that, but I know that there's probably tons of videos out there if you guys are interested in co-op. There is a ton of customization in the game. Just pulling up the window, there's tons of stuff you can switch in and out. They got your headgear, your chest gear, pants, boots, and like gloves, or I guess they weren't really gauntlets, but yeah, like gloves. Personally, I didn't get too much into the customization. For me, this is for me personally. I don't really get too much into customization, especially in third or first-person games, just because mainly you don't see it anyway. And I did notice that they kind of switched it in cutscenes, but it was mainly like just like your shirt and stuff that I noticed. My guns were never switched. Danny always had the same small, teeny tiny pistol. There's lots of customization in, which is also nice, and they all had added benefits. I think for a good portion of it, I had this fisherman hat on that basically gave you automatic night vision, so that was cool. You'd see enemies in the dark, basically anything alive in the dark, honestly. So like if you're taking over a camp at night, it's much easier to see the enemies and where they're hiding. So that was a lot of fun, very much appreciated. Because I know a lot of games will put like no customization in and then charge you for basically everything. But there is parts where you're at your base that you are in third person and that you do get to see somewhat what you look like. Like I said, I didn't really care too much for it, but I know there's people out there that do. Just thought I'd let you guys know. Last thing on the gameplay list is that the traversal, there's tons of things that you can drive around in, traverse the huge map that they have. Very daunting map, actually, by the way. They got planes. They got bikes, quads, horses, all manner of vehicles, you name it. They're all in there. For the most part, the cars are a little bit tricky to get used to. I definitely did not like them when I first started using it. And the more I used them, the more I kind of got the hang of it. But the horses were pretty easy to control. I used that for most of the game. And quads or the bike with the sidecar, probably the best traversal stuff. They got a lot of speed to them, but they're also, the handling's a little better. Stuff that was really crappy, the plane was just flat out terrible. I had such a hard time. I don't know why, but I just had the most difficult time. There's a mission in the game where you steal a plane and you blow up some tobacco fields or something like that. I can't remember the specifics, but long story short, you're in a plane and the controls are so freaking, it's just difficult. Like even like the joysticks, it just didn't work. If I had the option between choose the plane or anything else, I'd go with anything else. Talking a little bit about the visuals. Visuals were all really great. There's some really great scenes in the map. It is on an island, so it's a very tropical, very cool feeling. The game actually ran very smooth for the entire time I played. I actually didn't notice any glitches or any frame rate drops within the actual gameplay itself. And if there were, I personally didn't notice them. I feel like sometimes I'm pretty good at noticing them for the most part. So if there were any glitches, I either didn't encounter them on my playthrough or I just didn't notice them. The only things that I did notice is that, like, one, yes, the gameplay ran super smooth the entire time, but whenever it jumped to cutscenes is when I noticed that the frame rate dropped a little bit. So I think the game runs at 60. I didn't actually look too much into it. But yeah, running at 60, and it seemed like the cutscenes were running probably at 30. They just didn't seem as high quality, and they seemed that you could tell that it just didn't seem as smooth and fluid as the gameplay was. And so that was a bit of a letdown, especially since all the cutscenes, or not all of them, but the best cutscenes had Giancarlo Esposito in them, and it was a real shame that they couldn't. I just don't understand keeping the frame rate all at 60, but for the most part, game looks beautiful, ran smooth. I loved it. Okay, so technically, I put level design, and games like this, open world games, don't have levels per se. They have one big map, and you can basically go anywhere in the map right from the beginning. Though some parts you will definitely die very fast and very instantly if you go there. But I still kind of put this under level design because there are different parts of the map that are very different from one another. You know, you got lots of stuff on the ocean. You can swim in the ocean. There's sharks, barracudas that can all attack you, and the sharks can even kill you. I actually got killed by a shark, which I didn't think was possible. You didn't hit the mash fast enough, and the shark friggin' bites you in half. And then you go from the ocean, you go more up into like where the Legends mission was, and you get misty tropical mountains. And then you move from that to the Madrigal's like tobacco farm, and it's much more open plain, and you got the tobacco fields. So there's some variety to the game, and it's not just the tropical the entire time. Although you got your palm trees and stuff like that throughout pretty much everywhere, but the island was variety enough that it did feel different depending on which mission you were doing and where you were at. Adding on to the level design, the map is freaking huge, and for me personally, when it first showed the map, it was pretty daunting, pretty overwhelming. That's what I would say, overwhelming. When they show the map and then you see all these things start popping up, these are all the people you need to see, and then it shows all the enemies that you need to take down in each area, and it looked like there was 2 in each area, and it just seemed like a whole bunch. And I'm very OCD, and my brain was like, no, I can't leave until I do everything in this area. You got different mini games throughout the map, like the dominoes and the chicken fighting. You got different like treasure hunts you can go find, taking over enemy bases, taking out the anti-aircraft weapons. So there's just so much to do other than just the main story. Some of the treasure missions I actually really enjoyed. Kind of said this already at the beginning, but just the game looked really good, really beautiful. I love the tropical setting. And I think that they've done this in other Far Cry games before. Like I said, I haven't played any of them, so this was all fresh and new for me. But I have heard this might be a bit of a we've seen this before type thing. So just bear that in mind.
When I am dead and Yara is burning, what exactly is your plan?
Overall, guys, I thought the story was good, not great. It was a good story. A lot of ton of likable characters. The combat for the most part was very fun. I loved the gunplay. I loved some of the special guns that had the fire. But with that, there's also, some of the guns were very hit and miss. Some of them were very fun. Some of them were kind of eh. But the main villain, Giancarlo Esposito, did a fantastic job and is truly, other than Danny, the star of the show. I loved every scene that he was in. Downside is we just don't get to see him that much. I was actually very surprised on how little he was in the game, especially because of how marketed the game was with his face plastered over everything. It was just a little disappointing for me. A lot of the missions seemed to be very samey, and that's what really weighed it down for me personally. It's just, and that happened so fast at the beginning. You start to see the same types of missions over and over. Go to over here, take over the base, kill all the enemies, grab the dude, grab the thing, whatever it is. It just got really old really fast. The last thing that really brought it down was just the map being too overwhelming. There's just a lot of nonsense stuff. You guys might like it. For me personally, I'm not a huge open world fan, mainly because I am OCD and I want to do every little thing that's on there, whether I like it or not, because my brain's like, I can't move on unless this is cleared. And so that's just more me personally. I know that's not going to be a big deal for anybody else. And with those in mind, guys, my final score for Far Cry 6 is a 7.5 out of 10. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. And let me know down in the comments below what you guys thought of Far Cry 6. If you guys have any suggestions on which Far Cry game I should jump into, please let me know down below. I would love to try more. There's so many. I've heard that there's some were good. Don't play this one or play that one. So yeah, let me know down in the comments, guys. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. If you've made it this far, you guys are freaking awesome, and we'll catch you on the next one.